Welcome to another episode of Cowbells and Conversations. My name is Allison Clark, and today you're going to get an idea that is going to ring for you in 2022. My guest today is someone that I met through a mutual friend, and we both have a passion to help people, but also have people see what is possible with their life by setting really specific goals. So please help me welcome Caryn Gillen.
Thank you. I feel like I should have a cowbell over here. I did not prepare.
Oh, well, don't worry. I'll be sending one to you later.
Okay.
That's going to be your gift. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time today. So our mutual friend introduced us, Patrick Galvin. Mm-hmm. And what I love about that is that really life is all about relationships. So I know that you are really passionate about people, about relationships, but let's just get started with you. If you could introduce yourself and tell us first where you're originally from. Mm-hmm. Number 2, your favorite food.
Okay.
And number 3, what's your favorite part of what you actually do with people?
Okay. Number 1, I'm from a little island in Southeast Alaska. It's 100 miles south of Juneau called Petersburg. Mm-hmm. My favorite food, based on where I grew up, is black cod.
Ooh, I love black cod.
Known in the fancy restaurant industry as sable fish, if you're wondering what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And I prefer it any way you will serve it to me. Uh-huh. And the third thing is, what was the third part?
Of why you love what you do. Like, what's your favorite part about your job?
My favorite part about my job is that I get to connect and love people. Like, what I notice is if you give me 10 minutes to just talk to someone, I will find a way to love them. And I think we all need that, and we need to be seen, and we want to be seen and acknowledged. And it's healthy for us to know people and to be known by people. Mm-hmm. I love that I get to do that in a way that is sustainable in business for me, taking care of my family and living the life I want to live. Like, that feels like lottery winning stuff.
Oh my gosh, yes. And people are so fascinating.
Yeah.
Way better than any TV show, right?
Correct.
If you can just like get them to trust us and open up. Mm-hmm. Before, I do want to go back to how you get people to open up, but so you're from Alaska. Mm-hmm. So how long did you live there?
Until I was 18. And then I would go back in the summers. I was a commercial fisherman. So that's what paid for college. And then I got a master's, and then I eventually just left. So now I just get to go back here and there. I did spend one winter there as an adult, mm-hmm. and that was really snowy that year. It was really fun.
You're like, that was snowy and cold.
Yeah, like, I love Oregon because it feels like cheating to live here. Like, you never really shovel snow. It's pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So when you worked in Alaska, tell us, because I have a client who's in Alaska, Trident Seafoods, and I have seen behind the scenes as far as what you did. But what was your most difficult job there? So kind of paint a picture of what you did that was the hardest in one of the processing plants.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the hardest things was just like working for 16 hours a day. You know, I started there when I was 16. I remember I would come home. I didn't have a ton of what I would call my cannery clothes, but I would come home and I would have to do laundry sometimes. And I would lay on the washing machine and sleep so that I could feel it stop. And then I could put my clothes in the dryer and then go up and go to bed.
Oh my gosh.
Like, the amount of exhaustion, you know, and then tendering for Trident Seafoods years later on the Tacoma. I think my longest day ever was a 36-hour day. But, you know, Fish are not widgets. They are wild and live, and they decay, and
there's urgency.
There's urgency. Every fish that comes on board or into your plant, there is so much urgency because, you know, every single fish and so many parts of that fish are keeping so many family businesses going, so many people going, and there's no slowing down. You just got to do the work when the work happens.
Oh yeah. I was so impressed by people's work ethic. Because, I mean, they would be standing on their feet, which I'm sure you did too, for so many hours, but then also just fascinated how they use every single part of the fish. I remember like all the guts and everything went into this processing machine, whatever. And Joe, from Trident handed me like this vial. He's like, here. And it was the fish oil. And I was just like, okay, so I drank it. But it is amazing. I mean, like they do not waste, which is beautiful, like any part of the fish. But you're right, there is urgency. But what that must have taught you, just growing up, that work ethic. And also, like, you can't be a quitter or a complainer, being in that type of environment because there's no time for it.
Well, and you'll get fired. Like if you're someone who doesn't show up, you're fired because there's no room for people to not show up.
Right. Oh my gosh. So that Alaska, I mean, obviously that had an influence on what you did today. So when you think back, this is the deep thoughts of Alaska, but when you think back to your days in Alaska, how does that help you connect with people? But also there's a part of that I'm sure you have a different perspective, but you also have worked really hard and you've been in really challenging positions, that you can give different perspective to people. So when you look back at that experience and how you connect with people today, what would you say like the Alaska growing up experience really helped you with?
I think one thing that this could be a small town thing that a lot of us from small places have is I expect to know you.
Oh,
like I remember I went to New York City for the first time and I'm cruising down the sidewalks. I look at everybody's face. They're not used to this there. But because I am very used to walking down the street and actually knowing every single person I walk past. And so I kind of have that everywhere. And I look at the world that way. And so I see people that I know everywhere because of yeah.
Well, but also you're not looking past people. You're like, that person has a story. That person, is interesting and you want to get to know them. Yeah. You might be like me. My sister lived in New York for over 12 years. My dad is from New York, but I get myself in trouble in New York because I'm overly friendly because I'm just like, hi, how are you? My sister's like, don't talk to the movie guy. He doesn't care. So it's also like remembering that not everyone wants to talk to us at first, but I love that. So it's kind of just looking at that every person has that story and wanting to get to know them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you really do change people's lives. What you do is your title life coach, or what would you say that how you describe yourself? Okay.
I call myself a life and business or a life and leadership coach because I think it's really important we don't compartmentalize who we are and what we do. So I'm like whole person in the role you're in.
I love that. So when you think about that and how people are performing in their jobs today, why is it so important that people pause and really look at what else they're doing in different parts of their life? Because I have so many clients who put, and they admittedly say this, all their energy into work, and they don't take time for themselves, especially the last couple of years. Everything we're reading, we're hearing more about anxiety, depression, suicide, everything is up because people aren't taking care of themselves. So how do you work with people and really remind them that it truly is the entire, circle of your life? Mm-hmm. What are your, not your deep strategies with that, because I don't want to give anything away, but why is that so important for how people show up at work?
I think if we look at how we show up at work and you think about how you're building your business or whatever, if we only focus on the marketing team, then the customers aren't going to like us because we're not taking care of the customers. If we only show up for reselling things, then the people who want new things aren't going to know we exist. Like the same way you can't go into your business and focus only on one department, you can't go into your life and focus on only one department or everybody else gets unhappy. And when everyone else is dissatisfied, so are you. Whether you're tuning into it or not, you're feeling the effects of the dissatisfaction all around you. And then you're missing out on connection. You don't get to be with your people. You don't get to be you with your people. And then your people stop being themselves with you. And then you lose the point of everything.
Wow. You're very, very, very right about that, because our energy is felt with people at work, depending on what's happened to us in our personal life. So what are some activities or exercises that you do with some clients that would also be useful as we look at 2022? There's a lot of things out of our control, but also a lot in our control that we can start to be more mindful with our own actions and our plan for ourselves. So again, I don't want you to tell all your secrets, but what would be a couple exercises that you have proven to be really beneficial that people can start to do to get a different outcome as we start to look at 2022?
Quit faster.
Ooh, tell me more about that.
So look at everything and look backwards. Like, this is why I love working with people who have data behind them, not brand new to anything, but I've been doing this thing for a while. I've got a lot of data behind me. I've served a lot of clients or whatever the thing is. If you look backwards and you think, what are the things that were easy? How do I quit the rest of it?
So give me an example. Like, what have you heard people needed to quit that they kept like, I have to make this work. And then once they quit, they were so much happier.
I'll use myself as an example. It's offers. It's things that I sell or things that I do for marketing. And we get in that habit of, oh, I'm someone who podcasts. I have the Instagram. I got to be on LinkedIn, like all the things that I do to make my business work. But if you look backwards, what did each of those things actually generate for you? And if they didn't generate what you thought they would, or what you think they should, then why keep doing them? Because I can take that energy and put it into something that actually worked, that people actually want from me versus me making up a bunch of stuff just to keep myself busy. Like, I'm completely uninterested in being busy for the sake of busy.
Right. And I think I'm a huge fan of making checklists and checking things off. But to your point, I think a lot of people like, we have to do this, and you don't. It's like, what is serving you well? I mean, you and I are a great example. What serves us well more than anything is building relationships.
Yeah.
I can credit 90% of my business to one person as far as he gave me an opportunity. He gave me, I'll introduce you to, here's another company. They introduced me to someone else. So it's about relationships. So instead of like, I quit Twitter years ago for that exact same reason. I'm like, I'm not putting any energy into this. And I put my energy into LinkedIn. So for people, yes, you need to be organized and, figure out what you want. But I love that to reflect on, is it adding value to your life? And is it like adding happiness to your life?
And I think what that reminds me of is we get used to the new normal really quickly. Right. So like, if I decide I'm going to start a podcast, I'm going to run it for 6 months as a test to see like, what does it do? What does it bring in? How does it work for relationships, client acquisition, that sort of thing. And then I forget to do the review and forget to cut it if it's not working. That's on me. Right. So I'm just so used to being, now I have this identity. I'm a podcaster. I'm someone who podcasts. I'm constantly getting guests. Like, I don't have to do that forever. And by the way, the podcast is on the chopping block. Like, I'm going to get it to the 1 year mark and look at it and decide, like, is this something that's going to stay?
So what would you tell people to do? So that's a business example. What would you tell people to do like with relationships? Because I know that I've personally broken up with people, not romantically, even though I have done that too, but like I've removed some people from my life because they didn't add the value that I wanted them to. What would you encourage us to do as far as like in our personal life, how we can stay more focused on what is making our life better?
Yeah. I think one of the questions I like is, what are you doing just because you've always done it? Like, so how am I relating to people just out of habit versus from desire? Who are the people who I truly desire to spend time with, who feel like, and I just like the math equation of, does it feel like 1 + 1 = greater than 2? And if 1 + 1 equals less than 2, then the boundaries get a lot clearer. Yeah.
Now, I loved what you said earlier in our conversation about the 80-20 rule and how we need to think differently. Yeah. So will you explain, if no one's heard about the 80-20, which I'm sure most people have, but then also what is your new way of thinking as we go into 2022 to really focus on what matters?
So I really value spaciousness and ease. So I'm always looking at like, how do we make things easier? How do we reduce friction on all accounts? And I've been talking to a lot of clients about, how do you look back at the last year and only take forward the 20% of things that created the 80% of results? So that's 80-20. And then there's that 20% of things that took 80% of your energy. Like, what if we just quit those entirely? And because I'm a solopreneur and I work with a lot of people with smaller teams, it the question for me is like, what if we make it 95/5? What if you actually only did the 5% of things that created 95% of the results? So like for you, it would be that one person who made that one introduction to you and that changed everything. How do we prioritize those folks in our lives, those super connectors, and really leave the rest?
I love it. And I love just that simplifies, 95% stop doing. And what is the 5% that for sure you should put your energy to?
Yeah.
What I like to write down, I'm a more visual person. So is there an exercise that people could do to have them have that clarity? So I know, pro con list. I love to do that. I've made a lot of big changes in my life just based on writing down a pro con list.
Yeah.
What's an exercise that we could do to get us to be really clear about the 5% and what we should put our energy into?
Yeah.
Besides hiring you, which of course is an option.
I really like the 5 whys. So identify, okay, if I look back at the last year and I pick out, I want you to make a list of the things that came the easiest to you that fueled you. So it came really easily and it made me feel amazing. And it like amplified results in some way or another. So what are all those things that were both easy and amplified results, or that you absolutely loved? Maybe they weren't easy, but you just loved them so much they gave you energy. And then take each of those things and ask why 5 times. So it was that retreat that I held at the beach house. Well, why? Like, because the people who showed up were my people. Why? Because they found me, because I had a relationship with Richard. Like, why? Because I'm in a mastermind group where I really come alive and I'm really active and like whatever it is. Like, why am I there? Oh, because I believe in growth and whatever and whatever. But like dig into the like, I can see where this ended up. How did it start? How do I be the person who starts more things like that?
I like that. So even to like block an hour, go someplace quiet and just write this down, because I know that I do this sometimes. I don't stop and reflect enough. I've just started, and I've always been grateful, but I'm doing that more and more. It's just like being in these small moments. But I love when you look at 2022, hey, if we could take 5% of our energy, and just focus on that, how much more effective, how to simplify what we do instead of overcomplicate and add even more stress and anxiety to our life.
Right.
So that would be a great exercise for people to do. And then what is one final idea before I tell people what you actually do with clients, or you're going to, and then also tell people how they can hire you? So we can look at, have our own session by ourselves as far as like really identifying, looking back at this year. And this is also a great exercise to do because this year was more challenging. This year and last year than most of the years before, depending on what's gone on in your life. Yeah. So it's also exciting. It's like, okay, if we could do this year, like what is possible moving forward? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's one other activity or idea that would help people really just focus on more positive outcomes in 2022?
I think what's coming up for me is setting your own boundaries with yourself, because if you're going to be the kind of person who does 80/20 or 95/5, you also are the kind of person who knows what you're not doing and committing to what you're not doing. So having some statements that are really clear for yourself that say this, like, I am willing to do this. I am unwilling to do that. I am here for this. I am not here for that. This is okay. This is not okay. So for my daughter, it's like, it's okay to get mad when you go to timeout. It is not okay to slam your door. Like, what are the really clear boundaries that we can set for ourselves? Because the first thing that we're going to do in 2022 is try to act exactly like we did in 2021.
I like it.
Yeah. And go do these things. Like if you take you said a quiet hour, some of us need a noisy hour. So if you're better in a loud coffee shop, go to a loud coffee shop. Like for me, quiet is like instant death to a good plan. Like I need to go, like I could go to the brewery and it's like noisy and industrial, feels right at home. And I can really hammer out stuff like this.
Oh yeah. So you definitely choose your right environment. Yeah. But I do love that. It's like really focusing on what served you, but also what doesn't, and also remove that and be really clear about it. One simple thing I'm thinking about is, so I do a Tuesday tip every Tuesday and through MailChimp. And I remember when people, which so many, unsubscribe to so many things right now, but I used to be like really offended when people like, why do they unsubscribe? And now what I've done is I don't even look at who unsubscribed. I'm like, I focus on the people who are subscribed. It sounds something small, but it used to affect my mood that day. Cause I was like, why did, whoever Judy unsubscribe? I'm like, well, Judy probably didn't want that anymore. Or Judy is clarifying, like cleaning out her emails.
Yeah.
So that was something simple that I do. Yeah, but it made a difference for me. So I think these small things that we can, it doesn't have to be this huge, but just like, what is one thing that didn't serve you, and remove it, if it's possible to do that. So I love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So 2022, I know that you already have some clients, that have already booked a lot of your time. I know you have a couple more opportunities to help people. So when people work with you, is that a year-long commitment, or what does that look like as you coach them?
Yeah, typically it's a year, and
Okay.
we're doing adventure and coaching, and it's pretty individualized to who shows up. So the rest is up to them.
Adventure like what?
Well, like, how I am from Alaska.
I know.
I think we're going to go there.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's going to be individualized to the person, like, and we're going to do some coaching while we also do some other things like adventure wise. But again, individual. Yeah. Depends on the season, time of the year, which part of the state we're going to.
Ooh, I love it. So you get outside the box and you have people have experiences while they work with you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then how can people find you?
I am at Caryn Gillen, all the places, or CarynGillen.com.
Mm-hmm. And it's not Caryn, it's Caryn.
That's right. Caryn the Garage, for those of us who need
a visual
memory cues.
Well, my cowboy idea that I got from you is really focus on what served you this year and have your deep thoughts wherever your best environment is. But think about like what brought you joy, what really energized your business, but also your personal life. Keep doing that. And then what didn't. So get really clear about that. And as we move forward, set realistic goals, but also just really reflect on what really brought you more energy.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining. I'm excited to get people to be thinking about how to simplify their goals. We know based on the studies that we read, 8 to 12% of people only keep their New Year's resolutions because most goals that people set are totally unrealistic. They aren't structured. So I love your simplified plan to really reflect on what is working, what is not, and to commit to that. Mm-hmm. So people are going to be looking you up and getting a couple new clients for Adventures in Alaska. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, and we will be in touch.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.